Sacrococcygeal, I will just be very brief. There is a lot of stuff to discuss. So I'll just tell salient points. It is the commonest extragonadal germ cell tumor, and it is more common in females. That is very striking. And there is one variant called as Currarino's triad, which you can discuss if you want to. And here the female preponderance is much less, 1.5:1. And there is a familial occurrence also in Currarino triad. 7q36 is described. And malignancy was initially thought to be non-existent in the Currarino triad, but now they say approximately 1% in large series or systematic reviews. They have found that 1% will be the probable malignancy percentage. In sacrococcygeal teratoma, malignancy at birth is very rare, and initially after 1 year, or some people say even after 2 to 3 months, malignancy increases. But initially 1 year later, it was thought to be 75%. Now they say that with the accumulation of large numbers, it has come down to 40%. Cell of origin is either primordial germ cell or the primitive streak, or it can also be due to, they say, one theory is that it is incomplete twinning. Now I'll go on to prenatal diagnosis. Mainly the type 1 and type 2, the Altman classification, that also you have to discuss. Type 1 and type 2 are diagnosed prenatally most often. Important thing to remember is that this is one prenatal condition which can give rise to eye drops, other than the CPAM we discussed earlier. So it depends upon various things, what happens prenatally. So that also you can, salient points you can discuss. Tumor volume to fetal weight ratio, all these things you can discuss if you know about it. And then the mode of delivery prenatally, that also you can discuss. And prenatal management, initially there were a few centers where fetal surgery was attempted and they had decent results, but they also had poor outcome in the sense of premature labor, prematurity, and also mortality. Fetal demise also they had. So now it is more of non-invasive treatment prenatally. Let me know when 2 minutes are over. I can stop.
Sir, over, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sir, for antenatal management, criteria for surgical resection, in one of the study by Wilson et al., he says it is mainly, one is the fetal cardiac output, sir. It should be about more than 600 to 900 ml per kg per minute. If that is the output,
Okay.
then it is preferable to do fetal therapy. And
Okay.
at the same time, the contraindication is maternal Miller syndrome, sir. If the child is having that, it's a contraindication. And the prognostic indicators, as you said, is the growth rate of the tumor, sir. It should be, if it is more than 150 centimeters cube per week, then it is more suggestive of a high growing sacrococcygeal teratoma. And it has high perinatal morbidity. And the sacrococcygeal tumor to volume to head volume ratio, if it is more than 1, then it is predictive of a higher mortality.
Solid tumor volume to head volume ratio.
Yes, sir.
It's more than 1, 61% perinatal mortality.
Yes,
there is
sir.
another one called as tumor volume to fetal weight ratio, called as TFR. If it is more than 0.12,
yes, sir,
before 24 weeks, there is a 4.7-fold increase in mortality.
Yes, sir.
And if TFR is more than 0.11 before 32 weeks, it is a 6.2-fold increase in mortality. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes. The various
now, in
therapies,
perinatal medicine, one of the thumb rules they have is if the tumor is more than 5 centimeters, then vaginal delivery is not allowed. Or if the tumor is larger than the biparietal diameter of the fetus, then vaginal delivery is definitely not allowed. They go for cesarean section. Anyway, most obstetricians go for cesarean section when there is a sacrococcygeal teratoma.
Yes. And antenatal therapy.
What type of cesarean section was What of type of cesarean section they used to do initially?
Classical cesarean section was used
Classical
to
cesarean
decrease
section. Tumor rupture.
and
Yeah.
With a stapler, divide that.
Yeah. Correct.
And the antenatal interventions that they're doing was, one is the resection of the tumor cell, and one more, there is cyst aspiration, if it is cyst. And then certain other trials are with this laser therapy and radiofrequency ablation, sir.
Laser ablation is the most common one used, because they are now very proficient. The fetal medicine people are very proficient with laser use. Which condition they use laser most commonly?
Sir, PUV, sir.
Twin-twin transfusion syndrome.
Yes. Who is that?
Twin-twin transfusion syndrome.
Yeah, who's that? Who spoke that? Who told
So
that?
Vandana.
Okay. Twin-to-twin transfusion. Yes, correct. That is the commonest indication for, commonest fetal therapy done, and they are very proficient in doing it nowadays with laser. So they know how to use the laser very well. So laser ablation is the commonest one used. And then RF ablation, initially there were lots of collateral injury which occurred with RF ablation. So it was given up. Now they have better RF instruments, and they are using RF ablation. Which is other procedure which can be used other than fetal surgery?
Exit procedure.
Exit procedure. Very good. Exit
And
procedure.
all these fetal intervention are done considering that post delivery the child has to undergo a complete excision.
Yes. Okay. Now let's go to how we manage after birth.
Yes.
After birth, what are the issues in the neonate?
Sir, preterm babies.
Yes.
And
yes. Very good.
Size of the tumor.
Yeah. Tumor may have ruptured also, no? Prenatally, even without any therapy also it might have ruptured. So that is also one other thing. Then what can happen in the neonate because of the tumor? Suppose exit therapy has not been done, and
Sir, hemorrhage can lead to anemia.
Very good.
Output cardiac failure.
Yes, very good. Excellent answer. CCF in the newborn. Then hemorrhage, and then sometimes, very, very rarely, they have seen DIC in the newborn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What else? Because of rapid growth of tumor and rapid destruction of tumor in the newborn.
Hyperkalemia or electrolyte.
Which one? Which electrolyte?
Hyperkalemia will be there, sir.
Hyperkalemia. Yes, very good. So in them, LDH also will be very high.
Yes. And
So how do you treat post birth?
So post
these
birth,
things we discussed. Patient is stable. So how do you treat post birth?
sir, post birth generally it is a teratoma which is benign. Either it's mature or immature, and most of the times it is mature. And it is preferable to do a early resection post delivery.
Yes, correct.
Tumor marker, sir. AFP has got a role. And if it's a neonate, we have to have the nomogram charts to see whether it's normal or abnormal. Abnormal in AFP levels indicate presence of a foci of yolk sac tumor. And imaging, sir, either MRI or contrast enhanced CT scan can be done based on the availability.
Correct.
And if it shows invasion to the surrounding structures, it may again tell it might be malignant. And
suppose there is a type 1 or maybe type 2 Altman ACT, some intrapelvic component is there. Which clinical sign will tell you? Just one clinical sign will tell you it can be taken out completely through the coccygeal route.
So mobility.
Okay. What else? When you do rectal examination,
If you are feeling this one, sir, coccyx sacrum.
We can get above the swelling. Upper border is felt.
when you do a rectal examination, if your upper border is felt clearly and you can get above the upper border, that means that very, very likely, almost 100% chance that you'll be able to get the tumor out through the coccygeal route itself.
Yes, sir.
So what incision is used commonly?
Chevron incision is used, sir.
Chevron incision is used, yes. And very often a good amount of skin also has to be excised with the tumor, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Very often, if it is very, very thin and all that, and it is stuck.
Yes, sir.
For smaller tumors, some people have used midline incision, longitudinal incision, because it gives a better cosmetic appearance post-surgery. The scar will be much better looking.
Yes, sir.
Suppose the tumor is type 3 or type 4, what modification you may need to do?
Abdominal approach is required for the tumor.
Yeah, abdominal approach, or nowadays they also do laparoscopic approach. Why you have to do abdominal or laparoscopic approach?
To ligate the median circular arteries, sir.
Yes, and also to
Mobilize the
mobilize the tumor away from which structures?
So the pelvic structures, mainly the urogenital structures and the rectum. Sir.
And also more often
the sacral.
Ureter also you have to keep in mind.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
The goals of surgery will be complete excision, including a coccygectomy, avoidance of rupture.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Very good. Very good. Excellent.
And reconstruction of the anal sphincters are very important when we do closure. So we have to keep
Yes, very important. So what happens post-op when you are following them up?
Sir, the one is the continence rates and constipation will be there.
Continence issue will be there, and also
urinary incontinence and constipation in
lower limb weakness can be
yeah.
long term.
See, some series have reported as high as 29% anorectal and 33% urological sequelae post-excision.
Yes.
But other series have reported less numbers. But this you have to keep in mind when you are following them up. Okay.
Yes.
And you have to use the AFP to follow them up.
Yes. So immediate post-surgery, that anal opening will be slightly retracted posteriorly due to a reconstruction.
Correct.
That's also one more.
Correct.
So, and one more presentation is a slightly older children, which is about 6 months to 12 months old children. That's also seen.
Yeah.
And these are all more likely malignant type of sacrococcygeal teratoma. They mostly have yolk sac elements in them.
Yes.
And
correct.
overall, sacrococcygeal teratoma has a 17% chance of malignant features, sir. Out of them, 38% is type 4 have 38% of them are malignant, and type 1 8% of them are malignant.
More the intrapelvic component, more the chances of malignancy.
Okay. So which one is other than yolk sac? Which one is in immature teratoma? Which is the component which gives rise to the immaturity?
So neuroepithelial elements.
Which one?
Neuroepithelial elements.
Yeah, correct. So immature neural tubes will be there, and also immature rosettes will be there. So that you have to remember in pathology.
Yes.
So based on that, there is grading, which says that grade 0 is of course mature teratoma.
Yes.
Less than 10% is grade 1. 10 to 50%, 10 to 50 is grade 2, and more than 50 is grade 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Generally, chromosomal pattern is not seen in. Abnormality is not common, but in some they have found that there is gain of chromosome 1q and 20q, and loss of 1p and 6q. That's what they have found. These are very few studies.
Yes, sir. And this yolk sac tumor,
Currarino triad itself is a different entity we have to discuss separately. But remember that it is part of this. You can also mention it in your answer for sacrococcygeal teratoma about Currarino triad.
Yes, sir.
That in
Yes.
spite of being completely intrapelvic, the incidence of malignancy is very low in Currarino triad.
yes,
Initially, it was considered as 0. Now it is considered as 1%.
yes,
And it is familial, more common. And the female preponderance is much less in Currarino triad compared to SCT.
yes,
In SCT, it is 3 to 4 female to 1 male. In the Currarino triad, it is only 1.5 female to 1 male. Okay, remember that.
Yes.
Okay. Then remember the Altman classification. Remember about the pathology. Very important to remember about the pathology in SCT.
yes, sir.
Then very important segment is the prenatal diagnosis and prenatal therapy. And postnatal therapy, surgical management, surgical approach, and how do you manage for malignant teratoma? So, what are the regimens? Briefly, you tell me in about 1 or 2 points.
Sir, for
Malignant teratoma.
PEB or JEB regimen, sir.
Yeah, correct.
sir,
PEB will be cisplatin, etoposide, and
bleomas.
bleomycin, whereas JEB is
Yeah.
carboplatin, etoposide, and bleomycin.
Yes, correct. And recurrence of sacrococcygeal teratoma, again 1 or 2 lines you have to write.
Yes, sir.
So, what do you do for recurrence?
With coccydectomy, it is about 30% incidence. Without coccydectomy. With coccydectomy, it is about less than 10% incidence.
Correct. So, what do you do for
Recurrent surgery remains the mainstay of treatment for recurrent.
yes, correct.
Yes.
If it is possible, and you should try to attempt surgery and resect as much as possible, and then there also you can give the same regimen, but mainly BJ regimen is used, I think, that isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So metastatic sacrococcygeal teratoma, where does it metastasize to?
Lungs is the most common site, sir.
Lungs and
And-
liver, most common.
And whenever we come across metastatic GCT, there is a role of biopsy and neoadjuvant chemotherapy.
Neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Very good, very good. Excellent answer. Okay, shall we move on to the next topic?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Anybody has any other point to add?
Sir, on this embryonal, this yolk sac tumor, the pathology is it has the Schiller dual bodies, which looks like a glomerulus.
Okay.
In the sense, it is central necrotic blood necrosis with blood vessels and surrounding sheets of cells, 2 layers, and it looks like a glomerulus pathologically. The
Okay.
So is there any for endovascular interventional
For the-
radiology? Interventional radiology to control the median sacral vessels, sir, before surgery.
Okay. That is described, is it, for type 3 and 4?
Yes, sir. In some articles it is mentioned.
Okay. Okay. Right.
So good morning, sir. Can I add a few things?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Regarding this, I would like to know, make the PGs understand that SCT is basically an extragonadal germ cell tumor. Okay. Now, what are the other sites of, I think, Minupriya or somebody else? What are the other sites of common sites of extragonadal germ cell tumors?
Sir, anterior mediastinum, retroperitoneum,
Hmm.
and intracranial, sir. Midline,
area?
the midline.
pineal glands.
Pineal gland.
And supracella areas. Those are the most common things. How does
Yeah, mainly in the midline. You must remember in the midline.
midline? Now, how does what is a teratoma basically? It isn't define a teratoma, and how is it different from a hamartoma? You'll have to know those definitions. Basically, teratomas are well and have you if you're dissected in the over the pericardium, over the retroperitoneum, etc., you will feel they are well encapsulated. Either they have a proper capsule or they have a good pseudo capsule. But sacrococcygeal teratoma differs from other teratomas in that it doesn't have a capsule.
Yes.
Okay, you will realize it as you are dissecting. You will know the difference between the teratoma many times and the gluteae. Okay,
Yes.
we end up removing a lot of the gluteae. This I've seen from experience. So, because somebody here said that, somebody was mentioning the operator surgery part and thing, and said that malignant cells will have invasion outside. No, even non-malignant sacrococcygeal teratoma do not have a capsule and the extra abdominal or extra pelvic component is generally not well encapsulated. Then I think fetal hydrops was discussed. Was it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about serum AFP being elevated and all that. How do you know that the mother has a child with SCT? You must have mentioned ultrasound, fetal MRI, and all that. Anything else?
Fetal eclampsia.
I mean, mother will have preeclampsia.
No, before that, any blood investigations? You know that there is some tumor there. Do you do anything blood? You check my maternal AFP.
Yes,
Maternal
but
AFP crosses the barrier. Okay, maternal AFP will go up. Okay, the amniotic fluid AFP will go up. And there are certain indicators for the development of fetal. This thing, somebody, Ramchandra sir said that there's that index fetal, it is fetal volume to weight. I mean, the tumor volume to fetal weight ratio. Depending upon the trimester, we have an, an indication. And also that simpler thing, somebody mentioned fetal cardiac volume. If I were the examiner, I will ask him, how do you calculate fetal stroke volume, cardiac stroke volume? That's another discussion. It's a long discussion. And another thing somebody mentioned was the other indirect indicators of a possibility of hydrops are placental volume, thickness,
placentomegaly.
amniotic fluid. All this have to be. I don't think it was mentioned here. These are things that I remember offhand from the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we'll go on to the next one.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So total trial and Pluto trial. We'll start off with total trial because Pluto trial is a very sad thing and nothing much. Very few points to discuss in that. Total trial is a very, very nice trial. And this sort of started off in Europe. I'm sorry, total means tracheal occlusion to accelerate lung growth
Yes.
for diaphragmatic hernia. Okay. And most commonly for left diaphragmatic hernia, because they have also included some trials have included right diaphragmatic hernia. So CDH antenatal therapy is the total trial. Initially, it started off in Barcelona and Leuven. Leuven is in Belgium, Barcelona in Spain, where the modalities of how to do tracheal occlusion to accelerate lung growth was established, and then the idea was popularized throughout the world, and they decided to conduct a worldwide trial by recruiting mothers for the occlusion of the trachea to accelerate lung growth, and they developed criteria. So initially it was limited only to severe CDH, and that was called as the total trial severe or severe total trial. Then they went on to also include moderate risk CDH. So you have to tell me what is extreme, what is severe, what is moderate, and what is mild risk CDH. Briefly, you have to tell me. And extreme risk, of course, we don't need to study that because the survival rate is 0% in that. So that we will exclude. So tell me about severe and moderate, and mild we will leave out. So because of the success of the outcome in the severe trial, they decided to do the moderate trial. And what was the end point? What were they aiming to achieve in the moderate trial? That is the moderate total trial. You have to tell me about that. And then briefly we will discuss about the technical details about how the tracheal occlusion is done. So can we start discussion now? Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
For the total trial. Yeah.
Severe hypoplasia is defined as observed by expected lung head ratio of less than 25%, irrespective of the liver position. And moderate is when observed by expected lung head ratio is 25 to 34.9%, irrespective of liver position, or we take it as 35 to 44.9% with intrathoracic herniation of liver.
Excellent.
And
okay. What
we
is
have-
the expected survival without fetal therapy for severe?
0%.
Expected survival. How much? 30%. 30%. No, for
Yes.
extreme it is 0%, so we have eliminated that. So
Yes, sir.
in severe, 30% is the expected survival without tracheal occlusion. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, now you told moderate, what is the expected survival in moderate?
Not sure.
No.
50 to 70%. Most people accept 50 or 55% as the figure for moderate severity of CDH, as Vinopriya discussed. The 25 to 34 if it is liver down, regardless, and 35 to 44 if it is liver up. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
the survival rate is 50 to 70%. So what was the outcome after tracheal occlusion in the severe trial? In the pilot trial as well as later when they did for severe CDH. From 30%, how much did the survival improve to?
No.
70%.
No, it improved to 55 to 60%.
Yes.
Okay. And very important thing, the noticed was that the bronchopulmonary dysplasia, the incidence, came down from 70% to 40%.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now let's discuss about the moderate this thing. So what was the goal of moderate trial?
Sir, primary outcomes studied were proportion of neonatal survival and supplemental oxygen dependency at 6 months of age.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. Most important was that they were knowing that they are going to have good survival because of the outcome in severe trial. But the most important goal was to reduce oxygen dependency at 6 months of age. Okay. So the moderate trial is just closed about 6 months to 8 months back, and they have to come out with the results of the moderate trial. Not yet announced, but they have found that there is phenomenal increase in survival of babies in the moderate trial. Now, can you tell me at what age tracheal occlusion is gestational age is tracheal occlusion done in severe, and at what stage tracheal occlusion is done in moderate?
Sir, in severe it is done between
Less than 28 weeks, sir.
20.
Between
27
No,
and 20.
they were doing it earlier. Now in the multi-center trial, what stage they are doing it?
30 weeks to 31 weeks, 6 days. No, in
No,
severe
28 weeks to 29 days, 29 weeks, 6 days.
6 days. Okay.
28 weeks to 29, 6 by 7. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What about 30, this one, moderate?
Sir, 30
32
weeks,
weeks.
31 weeks, 6 days.
Correct. 30 to 30 weeks to 31
Yes, 6.
and 6 by 7.
Yes.
So when is the balloon removal done for both the
Between 34 weeks to 34 weeks, 6 days.
Yes, very good. Excellent. So must remember that. So can you briefly describe the how the total the procedure is done? Tracheal occlusion procedure is done. Anybody? What are the things you need to give to the mother for the tracheal occlusion procedure?
Oh, no, sir, we've not read the details.
Okay. Prophylactic tocolysis has to be given to the mother. Okay. And
Yes, sir.
antibiotics have to be given to the mother. All right. An
Yes.
important thing is the family has to stay, mother has to stay very close to the center. So they cannot, within 10 minutes, they have to reach the center in case of onset of labor. That's the most important thing you must remember when they recruit for the trial. Okay. Now I'll briefly describe how the tracheal occlusion is done. Mother is positioned with a slight tilt to prevent cable compression. No sedation is given to the mother. The ultrasound is done and the mother is positioned in such a way that there is a access to the fetal mouth. Direct right angle access to the fetal mouth is there. Then into the fetus, intramuscular injection of pancuronium, atropine and fentanyl with the doses calculated according to the weight of the fetus is given intramuscularly using a 22 gauge needle. And then local anesthetic is injected into the tract and at the point where they're going to put the trocar. So trocar can be done either by Seldinger method or by making a small incision to, it's called as a pyramidal trocar. It's a 10 French disposable trocar, which is a 10 French cannula. So 3.3 mm is the outer diameter. So they choose the area devoid of the placenta, obviously, and perpendicular to the nasal tip. The fetoscope is 1.3 mm fiber optical endoscope in which you can have a 0.9 mm detachable inflatable balloon.
Yes.
And then you can pass the fetoscope into the trachea through the nose and warm ringer lactate is instilled to distend the larynx. And the fetoscope is advanced up to the carina and the balloon is positioned between the cords and the carina. Okay, between the cords and the carina and detached. After 0.6 ml, normal saline is injected. The experts who do it, they do it within 10 minutes. That is the procedure time. And the learning curve is 15. So any fetal center which wants to do total trial has to have a person, minimum one person who has done 15 procedures of fetoscopy. Okay.
Yes.
So what are the side effects of total?
Sir, fetal loss, premature delivery.
Okay.
And in
Okay.
long-term dilatation, sir.
Tracheal dilatation, tracheomegaly.
Yes.
So what are the implications of tracheomegaly? They say there are no long-term implications except for a barking cough. Doesn't cause any other problem. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chorioamnionitis and chorionic layer separation is also described. And it is premature rupture of membrane is about 16.7% in the total trial.
Yes, sir.
So how do they measure the lung growth? I mean, what do they say? How long it takes for the lung to grow? So within 1 week, it starts growing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And volume change will always precede the vascular changes. Vascular changes also will occur. Maximum
Yes,
they
sir.
keep the balloon is for 4 weeks. So unplug is done latest by 34 6/7. Okay. Or when active labor occurs, because these people know how to do it. So normally it is done by either direct puncture and the balloon is allowed to float out, or by fetoscopy and removal of the balloon if it is done in an elective setting.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Very rarely they have to do it in an exit situation where they have to do a tracheoscopy and remove the balloon.
Yes, sir.
So what is the other than tracheomegaly, what is the other not a very beneficial effect of tracheal occlusion.
Loss of surfactants, sir, because of their own.
Very important. Tracheal occlusion induces lung growth but reduces the number of type 2 pneumocytes, which produce surfactant. So that is why it's very important to follow the plug-unplug sequence. Only if you follow the plug-unplug sequence, you will be able to generate lung growth as well as development of type 2 pneumocytes.
Yes, sir.
Of course, the other benefit is that you are not scrambling when the child is coming out and the trachea is occluded. The child will not be able to breathe. It's a very, very sad situation. Okay. Anything else we need to discuss about total trial? Tell me when the time is getting over, then we can restart the meeting.
No, sir, we can continue, sir. Not yet.
Okay, okay. Anything else you want to add for total trial?
Sir, the total, the questionnaire which they had given in Spain, there is a questionnaire on total trial.
Okay.
With all the physicians involved and what is their perspective in terms of fetal intervention. So most of them were still uncertain.
Yeah. So what is that called in ethics? What is that called in ethics? Very nice point you raised, Vinay.
Yes, sir.
No, you should know about it because as a physician, you should know about it when you read papers. And also as a reviewer, you must know it. And also as a person who answers questions in exam, you must know it. What is that one important point which is raised in all these trials or any clinical trial for that matter when you're trying a new therapy?
Non-maleficence.
Non-maleficence.
What is that?
Non-maleficence.
Non-maleficence. Okay, that is one important ethical thing. But what the point you raised, Vinay, what
Yes,
is
sir.
that called?
Uh,
It is called as equipoise. What is
Equipoise.
equipoise? Equipoise.
Where the physician is not sure whether doing the treatment is beneficial or whether following the.
Yes, exactly. Very, very nice answer. Totally correct answer. And truthfully, honestly, swear to God, the physician will not be aware whether the trial or not doing the trial is going to benefit the baby or the family. Okay?
Yes,
That is the most important thing. That is called as equipoise. And that is also another term for that in plain English is uncertainty principle. Okay?
Yes,
it is one of the most important ethical points in when you are following a trial. When the physician talks to the family, patient, equipoise is very important. So that you should not discourage nor encourage.
yes, sir.
Honestly, that is what it implies. Okay.
Yes.
So that is what was very, very negatively impacting the Pluto trial. That is what they found.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is sad thing about Pluto trial and what is Pluto trial?
Sir, it was prematurely stopped because of poor recruitment. This is the sad part.
What is Pluto trial? What is Pluto trial?
Percutaneous shunting of lower urinary tract obstruction, sir. That is
Yes,
Pluto.
correct. Yeah, mainly for posturethral valve.
Yes, sir.
Okay, where was this trial initiated and which countries took part in this trial?
Sir, England, sir, Birmingham.
Birmingham. It was started in Birmingham, and the countries which took part were England itself, that is Birmingham and other centers. Ireland, Scotland is considered as a separate country, part of UK, and Netherlands. Yes, very important. So what happened in, as you said, in Pluto trial? The study had to be closed early due to poor recruitment.